Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign review, this time covering Rakath. So Rakath's start position in Immortal Empires is the Great Turtle Isle, which is the same start position that Teclis used to have in the Vortex campaign in Warhammer 2, because in Mortal Empires the Great Turtle Isle didn't exist. Now in Warhammer 2, Rakath started in Albion in both the Vortex campaign and Mortal Empires, and I think that this is a better start position for him because there is a lot more variety of monsters for you to put into your beast pen than when you start in Norska. So, your starting enemy is this Sentinels of Zedi Minor Lizardman faction, which on lower difficulties is basically just an easy punching bag faction, but on legendary difficulty, they actually can become a little bit more difficult, largely due to the second army, which starts over here, being able to recruit faster on those higher difficulties, and due to the amount of time that it takes to get there, on the higher difficulties, by the time you get there, it's basically a full stack, whereas on the lower difficulties, it's like maybe a 3/4 stack, in which case it's very easy to deal with. So there's a method that you can use to trick these guys into fighting you a little bit earlier, and thereby stopping them from reaching full stack status, because time is against you with this. So here's what you do for it. This is primarily for legendary difficulty, so if you're not playing on that difficulty, you could probably disregard this. There's no particularly trick start with Rakath. But yeah, if you attach the wizard into the army here, then attack this army and occupy the Golden Ziggurat, recruit 2 units of preferably Dark Shards, but it's entirely up to you. Really important that whatever monsters you obtain on this turn, don't recruit them. You should get a couple of Harpies and maybe a Carnosaur or Stegodon, but yeah, don't recruit them. Don't sack the settlement, and I probably wouldn't advise looting it because it'll cause a revolt here pretty quickly, which could be challenging to deal with limited resources, so just occupy it. Then on turn 2, you want to go into channeling stance and move to about here. This will allow you to replenish whatever casualties you're still suffering from the previous fight, and also give you some extra winds of magic. Now, really important, don't recruit the monster pen units, because you want your army to appear weaker than what it actually has the potential to be. Now what should happen is the army that's sitting here recruiting should force march to the Chamber of Visions. Then on turn 3, whatever units you've got in the chamber, in the monster pen, recruit them, then launch the attack, and that basically ends their ability to fight back against you, and you've taken them out before they reach the full stack. They should end up being about a half stack at that point, which is much easier than getting down here and dealing with a much larger army, because their forces can be quite strong if they get to a full stack. And then of course 2 turns later you arrive over here and they haven't even managed to recruit an army. It's very easy to deal with. After that, you know, you can go whichever direction you want, but south seems to be the way to go, because north is relatively friendly. You've got the Zinj faction over here, which hopefully will leave you alone, and the Dark Elf faction over here, which you start off with a non-aggression pact. They're at war with these Blue Viper greenskins, but that war should go on for a while, so your northern border should be protected for quite a long time. And also, when they do fall, if they do fall, you'll have a good amount of notice if anyone comes around over this way. So going down south and attacking whoever you want is pretty easy. You got dwarves over here, which are pretty easy to deal with. You've got lots of armor piercing. Overall, Rakath does not have a particularly difficult campaign, but you can just do whatever you want. If you want to go sail over to Cathay, you can totally do that as well. Go meet up with Locke here. Another thing to note about his campaign is that very early on you'll get a mission to confederate Karan-Kar. It's highly advised that you either succeed that mission as quickly as possible before a Lithanar takes all their territory away, or just forget about it entirely. So if you wait like 20 turns before doing it, you may end up confederating one settlement and then a Lithanar just declares war on you straight away. Whereas if you take it straight away, then a Lithanar probably hasn't done that much, and you might get the full province of Karan-Kar, and thereby having enough time to deal with him because he hasn't built up that much. But it's entirely up to you how you want to go about it. Alright, let's have a look at Rakath himself. So he's got the trait Beast Lord, which reduces recruitment duration -1 for all monstrous units to a minimum of 1, which is pretty good because most monster units take 2 turns to recruit. So it brings them down to 1 turn, sorry. Then they've got melee defense +8 for monster units, which is good because that's the bread and butter of your faction here. You've got the ability Whiplash and Beast Lord's Gaze. So these abilities here, they're not that big of a deal, but Beast Lord's Gaze just affects 1 unit at a time. It's got a good range. Damage resistance +10%, leadership +16, and stops rampage. So that's pretty good against all the different units in your monster pen that can have rampage. Another thing to note is that damage resistance is exactly the same as ward save. I'm not sure why they use 2 different terminologies for the exact same thing, but you will see that throughout Rakath's skill tree where it says damage resistance, but it means exactly the same as ward save. So you've got this other ability over here, Beast Armor of Karan-Kar, which he starts off with his unique armor. So as long as he's got a large enemy presence nearby, so it has to, not one of your large creatures. So, for example, the Slan will account for this. You'll get an additional 11% damage resistance and 10 melee defense, and that applies in an effect radius, so that'll apply to all the units that are surrounding Rakath. Then if we have a look at his skills, he's got the skill Carrion Crows, which income from post-battle loot 25%, income from raiding plus 25%. I don't really value raiding that much, but at least with Dark Elves, you don't use up that much of your campaign movement range by going into raiding stance, which is where it sort of sucks with the other races for the most part. Armor piercing weapon damage plus 5 for Harpy units, which is quite a bit for those troops, and reduces the upkeep cost minus 100 for Harpy units, essentially making them free. So you could go with Harpy spamming because it's very easy to replace Harpies. You get them pretty much after every battle, but it'll essentially make your army a constantly needing to be replaced crap stack. It's entirely up to you if you want to do that. This is the thing about Rakath. He does have a lot of different sort of optimal stacks. It just depends on which way you want to play him. You got free range over here, which gives you casualty replenishment rate plus 5% when in foreign territory, which is okay. It's not as good as just straight casualty replenishment rate plus 5% because you can get that in foreign territory as well by going into a replenishment stance such as channeling. Enemy casualty replenishment rate minus 10% for enemy armies in local province, so that's good. And enemy armies that have been damaged will not recover quickly, and that's for the entire province, not just the local region. And then minus 8 control for the local enemy province, which is not very useful because causing revolts on the AI is almost pointless on anything other than like easy difficulty. But it might be useful if you want to try to revive particular factions for legendary Lord Confederations or getting their defeat traits. Then you've got a breeding program here, which gives you melee attack plus 8 for War Hydras and Charybdis units, and then provides like a bit of a swap ability for those units, where the Charybdis gives their Abyssal Howl ability over to Hydra units, and the Regiment of Renown version of the Hydra gives its breath attack over to all Charybdis units. So that's fairly interesting. Then you've got Harpy Claw Bolts, which gives casualties captured post-battle plus 25%. Increased chance of monsters will be added to the monster pen when raiding, fighting battles, or occupying settlements, which is good. Scourge Runner Chariots and Reaper Bolt Throwers gain the Harpy Claw ammunition, which will cause the suppressed ability. So I think that reduces their movement by about 30-ish%. And then you've got Pack Hunters, which gives ambush success chance plus 25%, recruit rank plus 3 for Cold One Knights, Cold One Dread Knights, and Cold One Chariot units, all armies faction-wide, but those are crap units, so I wouldn't really worry about it. It also provides them with Stalk for Feral Cold Ones, Cold One Knights, and Cold One Dread Knights, but it's entirely up to you if you want to make use of that. Personally, I don't like those units. Then you've got Apex Predator over here, which gives you recruit rank plus 3 for monster units, all armies faction-wide. Recruit strength plus 10% for Black Dragon units in your army. Passive ability Murderous Prowess for monster units. So if you want the strongest army you possibly can get with Rakath, you go with like a Black Dragon spam because pretty much all of his buffs apply to them. If you want the cheapest, most sort of like cost-effective early game army, then you probably want to go with Harpies, but it's entirely up to you. He's got 3 different mounts: a Scourge Runner Chariot, Manticore, and Brachus. I'd say that the Scourge Runner Chariot is probably better than the Manticore, because Scourge Runner Chariots are really bloody good, and Brachus is there if you want just raw killing power, but switching between the two is very useful. And if we have a look over here, he's got a quest item called the Whip of Agony, which can start at rank 7. Now, winning this battle here, it's a fight against Nakai, so you can get Nakai's defeat trait. Provides campaign movement range plus 10%, melee attack plus 8. Attacks cause discouraging effect, which is good for lowering leadership. Weapon strength plus 12%, and ability Whip of Agony, which lowers the melee defense and removes fear and terror in an area. So that's fairly useful if you're going up against a lot of monsters. And you've got the set bonus of control all provinces and recruit rank plus 4 for monster units or armies faction wide. So that stacks with this one over here. So what's that? Plus 7 for recruit rank for monster units, all armies faction wide. And then of course you've got your victory conditions, which will give you recruit rank plus 3. So you'll actually end up with recruit rank plus 10, which is beyond their maximum. So there's a lot you can do there with Rakath for monster units. Now, the other thing is his monster pen. What I like about this one is that it's actually quite transparent. It tells you how to get these units, like with the Black Dragon attacking High Elf or Dark Elf settlements. Luckily, there are some High Elves and there's some Dark Elves in Lustria, so it is possible for you to get some Black Dragons fairly early on. It also shows you how much capacity you have. at maximum, which is something that in Warhammer 2 it didn't do. It didn't tell you how much you could potentially hold. So obtaining these is at very least is very transparent about how to go about it. What the actual percentage chance of you obtaining them, it doesn't say, but at least it shows you which you've got. You've also got access to the feral ice bears and feral bears, which is something that he didn't have access to in Warhammer 2. So he's one of the few Warhammer 1 and 2 factions that actually has something additional in Warhammer 3. Overall, it's an okay Dark Elf campaign if you like Dark Elves. Obviously, I've gone about it a lot of times, but I got problems with Dark Elves. But Rakath's campaign is better than it was in Warhammer 2 at least, aside from the other Dark Elf problems, namely their slaves. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Rakath, what you think of this review. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.